This video is for discussion and review of the rise and the fall of the Populist Party and populism. Origins can be traced back all the way to some contributing organizations like the Grange Movement back in 1867, and ultimately their fall and decline by 1896. So you want to make sure that you've got notes to be ready to take notes on, and you can pause and restart and come back if I talk too fast. All right. So remember a couple of factors, a little bit of background review. Immigration is happening during this time period. We have vast industrialization, post-Civil War, and expansion of big business, rapid expansion to the west, and settlement in the Great Plains states, specifically North Dakota, South Dakota, and Nebraska and Kansas, and so forth. What allows for this rapid expansion west? A lot of technological inventions and the mechanization of agriculture. So why do farmers settle in the Great Plains? Well, post-Civil War, it was actually there was like a decade of above average rainfall. So people were moving westward, and they see it's actually a good amount of rainfall where they can produce high yield cereal grains like wheat. That's actually above average. So later on, when it goes back to normal, they're going to experience some hard times. Railroads, again, guaranteed ease of access to ship products, but also to get products, manufactured ones, back to the Great Plains. And also you have very cheap land. Sorry, had to pause there real quick. And my battery was running low. Okay, so very cheap land. You can see those three acts before. We've talked about them previously. During the 1870s and 1880s, we see falling prices for food. So farmers are actually getting lower prices, and that's because they're overproducing. They're producing too much. If you have a surplus in supply, that actually drives down price. A series of natural disasters are going to be occurring, and railroads are charging high amounts of money for short distance hauls, and so there's no regulation by the businesses, by the government on the businesses to limit those shipping charges. Farmers also struggle to have cash on hand, so they depend heavily on credit. So when prices are falling, they can't meet their mortgage payments. Lenders are foreclosing on their farms and houses. So farmers are really quite upset during this time period, and they're struggling to organize. They do organize into a couple ones that we've talked about before, the Farmers Alliance, the Grange, which is the first one. Both of them were designed, and the Colored Farmers Alliance was there to combat railroad power, to cut out the middleman. In 1892, you see the first real official platform of a new political party called the People's Party, or we call populism. This forms really out of an alliance between the Knights of Labor and the Farmers Alliance. So that really transforms into the Populist Party. Well, so the big question is, what do they want? So basically the same things that both the Farmers Alliance and the Knights of Labor wanted, to get the industrial workers to support them. They advocated 8-hour work days and limiting immigration. They also, what the farmers want, they want regulation of the railroad by the government. They wanted and advocated for a graduated income tax, and that's what we have today, and some constitutional demands. Those are going to be seen and carried forth with progressivism, so we're going to come back to those later on next week. But the big thing is, one thing that the populists are known for, is they want to increase the amount of money in circulation, and that is by adding silver to the standard of gold, which we call bimetallism. This would make it easier for farmers to pay off loans, and they get lower interest rates, which is good, and that's what they want. So here you have some groups that support adding money, adding silver to the gold standard, and then, of course, supporters of the gold standard, largely being my Republicans. In 1892, this is the presidential election. The big outcome is, notice that the populist candidate won 9% of the popular vote. That's the largest percentage of a third-party candidate, right? And it really throws off the Democratic and the Republican Party, Cleveland and Benjamin Harrison. Cleveland ends up winning in the electoral vote, and that's because he has control of the Democrats control the South, and also you have New York with 36 electoral votes, being the highest populated state in the Union. Cleveland, this is his 1892 is his second term that he has. Okay, I was waiting for the beeping to stop. So here you have this political cartoon actually published in June of 1891, right after their 1892 National Convention, right? So what you see here, you see a hot air balloon, and the balloon is made up of a whole bunch of different patches, right, of all of these old parties, the Knights of Labor forming together with the alliances, with the Farmers' Alliances, with the Prohibition Party and those who advocate free silver, and the Old Grange Party, but also notice there's a socialist patch on there, and then there's also an anarchist patch down here at the bottom. All right, down in the basket area, you see a platform of leniency, charging that the populists are full of hot air and that they're not going to last. Their movement is not sustainable. So the point of view of the author of this cartoon is clearly against the populist party. This person is not really a Democrat, because some Democrats are going to be sympathetic to the populist party. Really, this was created by a Republican. Also, Judge was a generally conservative magazine. The Panic of 1893 does give a lot of support and build up for the election of 1896. When in doubt, economic panics in American history are caused by over-speculation. This one is the over-speculation of the railroad industry. The big impact, notice unemployment reaches up to 18%. That's the second highest, unemployment rate that we have on record in the United States. The only one that supersedes that would be the Great Depression, right? 16,000 businesses fail, 500 banks go bankrupt. This is when the Pullman strike occurs. This is also when you have Coxley's Army march on Washington demanding money for jobs. So J.P. Morgan actually ends up loaning the federal government money to bail them out of this economic panic and to help them bail out the railroads. But in 1893, this lasted a number of years, and so by 1896, the Populist Party and the populist message of the bimetallism is very attractive to a lot of people, and especially the Democratic Party. So in 1896, they decide that they are going to support the Democratic candidate, William Jennings Bryan, who is very sympathetic to the populist movement. He's so sympathetic that some of the political cartoons of the day charged that William Jennings Bryan was actually a populist, and he had in turn swindled the Democratic Party represented by the donkey, and he's swallowing, the snake is swallowing him, essentially. Right? Again, very critical. The point of view is this author is critical of the Populist Party, doesn't quite trust them, and also William Jennings Bryan. On July 9th in 1896, William Jennings Bryan makes this speech, and this is one of the best speeches in American history. It's full of great rhetoric and imagery and devices, so it's great to read in English class. This is kind of his ending. He says in the middle, having behind us the commercial interests and the laboring interests and all the toiling masses, we shall answer their demands for a gold standard by saying to them, meaning the government, saying to Republicans, and this is the big here, you shall not press down upon the brow of labor this crown of thorns. You shall not crucify mankind upon a cross of gold. In reference to not only the crucifixion of Jesus Christ in Christianity, but also, if you're gonna physically attach the United States to only the gold standard, because it's going to hurt the average man. This is a rather famous political cartoon being critical of William Jennings Bryan's speech, calling, there's a caption at the bottom that got cut off, the sacrilegious candidate. Notice he's proudly holding this huge gold cross. He's got the crown of thorns, and yet he's standing on the Bible. He's trampling on all of those things, and notice the little supporter in the background is waving a flag of anarchy. Right? So again, sarcasm and being a sacrilegious candidate, he is betraying his Christian beliefs and therefore should not be supported. In the election of 1896, Bryan wins most of the popular vote. It's very, very close, the popular vote. Bryan wins about 47% of the popular vote. McKinley barely edged him out with 51%. But look at the Electoral College vote. With the Democratic Party, you see they still control the South and the West and the Midwest. The West and the Plains states. But notice between 1892 and 1896, they lost New York, they lost parts of California. So we start to see a swing in who supports the parties, right? We call this in politics, political science, we call this a realigning election because we see a shift in where people and which parties, what they stand for in ideology, and also where we see votes tend to happen. The last little bit here is just for reference. There are some historians, and this is also really easy for teachers, that they say that the book The Wizard of Oz was written as an allegory for the story of populism. Frank L. Baum, the author of The Wizard of Oz, denies it, and he says, no, this isn't like Animal Farm, right? And it's not an allegory, but pretty much it tells the story of populism. So if you're curious, Dorothy Gale is from Kansas. Kansas is really the heart of the populist movement. Dorothy represents the everyman. Toto is a play on teetotaler. The prohibitionists were also strong allies of the populist movement. The Yellow Brick Road represents gold, and the Emerald City representing government, and the Emerald City being green. What's green? Money, right? The wizard is kind of manipulous. The Tin Man, I think this is the easiest thing and what really stands out for me. The Tin Man is the urban worker. The Scarecrow is my Western farmers. And the Cowardly Lion represents Bryan himself. So just a quick, easy way to remember the populist movement, who are the leaders and who supports it. That's what I really think. The everyday man, the Tin Man being the workers, Scarecrow being the farmers, and who leads them? The Cowardly Lion, William Jennings Bryan. Known for his soaring rhetoric, so he's shown as a lion to the press. The East represents the wicked East industry, right? And the silver slippers, that's how Dorothy gets home. In the movie, I know they're ruby, but in the book, it is silver. And the silver slippers being the way that she gets home, that's the way you bring out and solve this problem of the gold standard by adding silver to the currency. So kind of an easy thing there. All right, that's pretty much it about populism. Hope you took some good notes, and if you got any questions, post them in the comments, or we'll talk about it in class. Have a great day.